Alright, folks, it's yet another episode about my record collection as requested by some of you people. This time it's gonna be a rather short one. It's the letter E, and even I was surprised how few albums, or even more so bands, I have from letter E. Whereas D was quite a lot, and even B was pretty much, with the batteries and the bursums and ball throwers, yeah, lots of things to go through really. Letter E turned out to be rather surprising, short and sweet to be honest, and even that was dominated by one band alone. If you can guess it already, then you either know me very well or then you are just very good at guessing. Anyway, let's go through that in alphabetical order and make some pointers. My first, if I'm not mistaken, with alphabetical order is from Sweden, Ellende. Very nature-themed black metal with a warm, kind of a grounded, traditional second wave black metal with modern touch. But modern in this case means this wasn't recorded in the early 90s. A really good band that people should be keeping eyes and ears peeled for. Something that I loved when it came out, and I still do like it a lot. Maybe as to my surprise, Ellende's album, this very hard to pronounce one with the boar in royal clothing, Ellende, turned out to be a really good one when it came out. This is a little bit more modern type of black metal, which basically could just go out of my boundaries. But to be honest, something really clicks with me still to this day. And while it's an old album, sometimes these modern things I get more like excited about when they come out, and then I'm like, after a couple of years, I don't really need it. But full review of that is obviously found on the channel as well as the elder one. Now, this shouldn't surprise nobody at all. As you can see, this is old copy of In the Night Side Eclipse, in my opinion, by far the best Emperor album, and by far the best symphonic black metal album of all times. This is the kind of genre I never was too much a fan of or fond of. But when I was younger, I had more, say, understanding, more easy to like this particular genre. However, no album ever came near, and it makes this album so wonderful given these guys were very young when this came out, and they outright just nailed a masterpiece. 5 out of 5 kind of an album here, and it's still one of those cornerstones for me from Norwegian black metal. Truly a gem. Even if I just cut off like 90% of my whole record collection, and really just went on with the gems, this would still be right there. And now comes a surprise. No more Emperor albums in my collection. Why so? Well, that's a story be told in my Emperor Worst to Best thing. But yeah, I don't really like them as such that much apart from the first album. Then some dark ambient from an album I really remember liking a lot back in the days. En Nihil with Death Keeps. This is very dark and sinister stuff, and I haven't been listening to this for a long time. And my recollection was this is very dark, evil sounding, sinister sounding music, and really it is. Not for everybody, but if you like dark ambient, missing En Nihil, Death Keeps, no reason for that. One of the best thrash metal albums of recent years came from a band called Enforced with Killgrid. This is a really powerful album that is really able to challenge a lot of classic albums with thrash metal genre. I still like some other newer ones from Enforced, however they are not as good as that. And then comes the little bit more boring, not boring part in terms of music, but in the sense of I'm gonna put a lot of albums here and just quickly go through them. Yes, if you guessed right and said Enslaved, with the dominating band of the, in the letter E. Here it is. I don't obviously have all the Enslaved ones. There are eras when the band really went, kind of a south for me. The Monumention, Isa era, really. There are a few albums that I didn't like. So basically, whatever happened with after Bloodhem kind of left me a little bit cold, and then I came back with Rune. So just quickly to go through them. And these are, of course, for me, in alphabetical order. One of my all-time favorites for Enslaved is Axioma Ethicodini. In my opinion, the leading album of the third wave of Enslaved. Then Eld, which I was so lucky to hear on Beyond the Gates fully played live the top moment, Viking black metal albums after Battery. Then Frost, my first true love with the given band back in the 90s. Something that I just recently traded in and hence still in wrapped in plastics in Times. Albums that I liked a lot, but for some reason never came to me as a review copy, went to a colleague, so I kind of missed it back in the days. I mean, then I listened to it and figured I really need it, but I wasn't in a hurry, and so here it is. Then you have the kind of a runic album, the M. Really great stuff here once again, and these are, as you can see, mostly dominated by the third era of Enslaved. Ritir also is part of that. And then the album that restored my faith in Enslaved back in the days was Rune. I mean, like I said, I loved the early Enslaved from, the debut album to around Bloodhem. And then I was like, oh man, these albums don't do a thing. And with the Isa and whatever, that was pretty good and all. But Rune was really like, okay, let's just restart it. That was, by the way, followed with Vertebrae, which I also loved a lot. But first, let's go these through. One of the EPs, which I think is very, very best, is for a few years with me only as a digital copy, and I was like, God damn, I need this as a physical. As you can see, this is the Sleeping Gods / Thorn. Thorn was released on 7-inch EP. Not that great in my opinion, but the Sleeping Gods have some of the best modern Enslaved tracks, and I was so happy when it finally came out as an album. This is the newest one I have from Enslaved, Utgard, and now they have moved to what I would call fourth era of Enslaved. I don't find it that great as third, but definitely better than the second. These are more in details gone in true in my Enslaved video few years ago. And then finally Vertebrae, which was coming right out of Rune. This is around the time when I got to interview the Enslaved for the first time. This was before Rauta, obviously. And noticed how great guys they were. So as you can see, a lot of Enslaved stuff, because in my opinion Enslaved is one of the best bands from Norway. In terms of how many great albums they have, probably my favorite of all times. Then a band that I really didn't see coming as something that I would love a lot, but loved this through their gig at Nordic Metal Cruise a few years ago, Evergrey. Now, that was a band that until 2018 I hadn't even heard of. I figured out this is one of those names which didn't really rang with me. But then a friend of mine recommended me to check out some Evergrays, his favorite ones, and they were a little bit older, so I think early 2000s, maybe even for 90s. And I thought, nope, not my stuff. But I still went to do an interview with the guys, or just one guy. And then they played the show, which was good, and the album I really got me going was The Atlantic when it came out, and it was like, really, this pushes all the right buttons from a weird genre for me. Progressive, melodic, metal with gent and, all that stuff. And I was like, how on earth I'm supposed to like this? But there it was. With The Atlantic started my love with the band, and ever since I've gotten these other tunes like A Heartless Portrait, Escape of the Phoenix, and Theories of Emptiness. That melancholy bonded with, the vocalist, Englund, and I'm like, man, this is the kind of stuff that I'm not supposed to like, but I have always had some kind of a weird knack for music that is filled with melancholy and dark, kind of a depressing even, and there it is. Evergrey nowadays one of the most interesting bands from Sweden for me. Really love the vocals, really love that stuff. But yeah, as you can figure out, not very typical band for a black death metal guy. And I mean black metal and death metal, not black death metal. And also thrash metal. Alright, there it is. And then we go to Exodus, which is also a little bit weird because I only have a couple of albums. Now, Bonded by Blood is, in my opinion, one of the best thrash metal albums of all time. A 5-star album, really. Pretty much the same thing for, American thrash, what In the Nights at Eclipse is for, Norwegian symphonic black metal, meaning not maybe the most polished and, most honed one, but, that's kind of stuff that is borderline perfect. Only Slayer has made better albums than this when it comes to thrash metal. Well, let's be challenged by Metallica's Golden Era. But yeah, really great stuff. I already reviewed it a few years ago, so no point to go through that. And then Pleasure of the Flesh, which is not nearly as good, but still a good, solid thrash metal albums. For some reason, eventually, or early, I think 2000s, or maybe it was in the 90s, I kind of, started, listening Exodus in a way that I didn't really resonate with me. But then again, there are also blind spots, which I, for some reason, never went through. Even when I had these. There's no excuse but just being overwhelmed by the amount of review albums. So this is the kind of a band I really need to go back and listen to the full discography at some point. And I promised myself to do it once I'm done with the retrospective series for the bands I have interviewed. So, weird thing. Then one of the kind of a marginal albums from my collection is Exoendo. And this is Pushkara, which is the kind of a Buddhist type of dark ambient. Not exactly the darkest of dark ambient, obviously, but a very mystic, very Asian religion kind of things, and very soothing album. Very interesting act in the sense that, it doesn't really sound like your typical dark ambient when it comes like super dark, super evil, super sinister dungeons and all. It's more like, the kind of religious waves in a way without being religious, if that makes sense. Maybe more spiritual journey in audiophile. And then last in the letter E is Exumer, a German thrash metal classic band which somehow all the decades kind of escaped my attention until this came for review a few years ago, and I loved it. So I also, much like Exodus, I should have been going through the discography ever since, but as you probably guessed the answer, too many review albums all the fucking time. And when I'm not doing review albums, then I'm having this weird project like black metal from the 90s from Finland or from Norway, and I'm just doing all that stuff and kind of avoiding doing these discography runs, even though I might like it. So, as you can see, the pile of letter E, not that much for me. Some people might be wondering some of the key bands, where is this, where is that? And there's no really better reason that except that me being picky. I guess there should be more Exumer and Exodus ones, for example. Enslaved, not so much. I pretty much know what I really like and all that stuff. And probably there are lots of bands coming from letter E which I just can't remember right now, and people might be asking, why don't you have this and that? A good example would be Entombed. Why don't have Entombed albums? Well, I never liked them that much. But there is that. Anyway, this is the episode about letter E. Almost pretty done with the letter F as well, so that should be coming out pretty soon after this one. I only have a few albums left from that particular letter, and that's not a very big one either, as you can pretty much figure out. There are not that many bands starting with F, which are really great. So comparing once again to bands like C and B and D or even A, I guess, these letters don't really make that much of a big impact. Anyway, now you know a little bit more about my record collection. Stay tuned for the next episode, letter F. Or if you want to go back to the previous episodes, well, there they are, as video format. Looking forward to your comments. What I'm missing, what should I have? Let me know, and maybe eventually I will get them a shot, assuming I have the time. Off you go. Bye-bye.